Revealed, the sinister attic in Kentucky where 39 haunted children were caged like animals. Sarah's heart raced as she stared at the old house engulfed by shadows at the edge of the woods. Grotesque stories had twisted around it, tales of despair and chilling whispers. She shivered, imagining children trapped within, screaming for freedom, a cacophony lost to time. It wasn't just folklore, the townsfolk told grim legends. Everyone around here gave it a wide berth, yet curiosity and fear gnawed at her like ravenous wolves, desperation clawed at her insides. Jake had vanished. One minute he was heading to the park, and the next, the world turned dark, heavy with dread. As she paced their crumbling living room, the overhanging shadows flickered as if breathing, waiting, watching. The missed calls from a park nearby, from a friend of his. The nurse she met at the diner had whispered hastily about kids vanishing down this very street, slipping behind the veil of the dreadful woods. How could a boy like Jake, bright, funny, always cracking jokes, just disappear? The wind howled outside, a mournful wail echoing her internal chaos. Sarah's skin prickled. She clutched the worn fabric of her couch, the old smell releasing memories of better times. For one haunting moment, she thought she heard soft laughter, children's laughter, faint and slippery, slipping through the walls of the abandoned houses that loomed around her. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night crept in. Shadows morphed into sinister shapes, they danced outside her window, taunting her. She glanced at the clock. It felt like hours since Jake left. Panic gripped her like icy hands around her throat. She grabbed her coat and headed outside, desperation pulling her toward the dark path winding into the woods. Tamar Thompson, the neighbor, had offered help when she mentioned Jake's absence. A pinprick of doubt nestled within her gut. His warm grin felt unnatural against the cracks in her heart. Could he be part of the tale she dreaded? Whispers of wrongdoings echoed in her mind amidst the thrumming of her pulse. She found herself outside his door, heart pounding like a hammer against steel, desperate and afraid. "Mr. Thompson!" she shouted. Silence, then a creak. The door opened just slightly, the smell of something sweet but rotten wafting through. He stood there, his grin wide, but his eyes, cold. "Any news on Jake?" she stammered, though something deep within her screamed to run. "Ah, children have a knack for wandering," he said, his voice silky, layered with something untrustworthy. The hairs on her neck bristled. "You know, back in the old days, we had different ways of keeping them safe." His words, like decaying leaves, crunched underfoot. She turned, heart racing. Had he said what she thought? Her instincts were screaming now. As she stumbled back toward her door, shadows darted into her vision, figures darting behind the trees, thin and ghostly. Jake's laughter echoed once more, twisted by despair. Just ahead, the woods loomed more ominously, thickening the air, laden with a presence that felt ancient. What awaited her in that decaying house? Would it reveal the terrible truth tangled in her son's absence, or would it consume everything she held dear? The fear was suffocating, but Sarah couldn't turn back. The haunting whispers of children echoed louder, pulling her onward into the darkness, helpless against the pull of the unknown. Would she uncover the truth about the forsaken attic, or become just another name lost to its lore? The path twisted, gnarled branches reaching like skeletal hands, beckoning her forward. Every rustle in the underbrush made her heart jump, like a bird trapped against the tight confines of its cage. She squinted into the dark, fighting the creeping dread that clawed at her chest. She could almost hear the whispers of the children, echoing in her mind, mingling with the soft rustling of leaves. As she approached the house, the moon unveiled its crumbling facade. It loomed over her like a sentinel of despair, stooping to swallow her whole. Each step felt heavier, as if the shadows themselves were pulling at her legs, begging her to stop, warning her of the horrors that lay ahead. Sarah fumbled for her phone, hands trembling. The screen flickered to life, a weak beacon against the oppressive darkness. No signal. Only static crawled across the screen, a foreboding reminder of her isolation. A chilling thought struck her: what if she vanished too? What if she became just another story, told to frighten children into behaving? Pushing the thought aside, she climbed the rickety steps, each creak echoing like a death knell. With a deep breath, she reached for the door. It swung open with a groan that seemed to shake the very foundation of her resolve. The stale air hit her like a wall, thick with decay and the sweet scent of rot. "Jake!" she called, her voice trembling, ricocheting against the damp walls. Silence answered. Only the sound of her own heartbeat thudded in her ears. She stepped cautiously inside, scanning the dim interior. Dust motes danced in the light filtering through cracked windows. Her senses heightened, she moved carefully through the house, navigating through doorways half swallowed by shadows. The floorboards protested beneath her weight, each step an unwanted reminder that she was not alone. A chill brushed past her, making her skin crawl. Was someone watching her? As she ventured deeper, she stumbled upon a doorway, slightly ajar. It wasn't the crooked kitchen or the peeling wallpaper that caught her attention. It was the muffled sound, a soft, almost pleading murmur that sent shivers racing down her spine. She approached cautiously, heart pounding in her throat, and pushed the door open. The attic space yawned wide, an abyss of darkness that seemed to breathe. Shadows lurked just out of sight, teasing her with promises of what lay beyond. She swallowed hard, moving deeper into the suffocating darkness where fragments of the past clung like cobwebs. A flicker of movement caught her eye, but when she turned, there was nothing but the echo of her own breath. Then she saw it: the old trunk, forgotten and dusty, loomed in a corner. An uneasy feeling welled up inside her. This was no ordinary trunk, it carried the weight of stories, of anguish. She reached for the rusted latch, and as her fingers brushed the cold metal, she hesitated. A memory surged, the laughter of children again whispering in her ear. "Don't!" A voice hissed from the shadows, startling her. The air felt electric, charged with fear. "Leave now. You shouldn't be here." She spun around, heart racing. Who had spoken? Panic blurred her vision. Was it Jake? The old attic creaked again, and suddenly, whispers erupted from the darkness, a chorus of voices blending together, calling her name. "Help us! Please help us!" She backed away, soul crushed under the weight of the realization: the children lost, forgotten. The truth was spilling, haunting her. Would she end up in the same fate as those lost souls, trapped forever? The door slammed shut behind her, cutting off her escape. A chill washed over her, freezing her in place. Shadows advanced, swirling like a storm, their eyes reflecting a dreadful hunger. How had she walked into this trap? "Sarah," they sang, the light dimming even further. "Stay with us." She felt the pull, the suffocating despair wrapping around her like chains. And then, a heartrending scream tore from her throat as realization hit. She was not alone. Something lunged from the dark, and her world went black. What had she awakened? Who or what had been waiting for her in that silence? Darkness swallowed her whole. Sarah gasped, struggling to breathe, the air thick with secrets and despair. The shadows pressed in, a malice she could feel on her skin, tracing cold fingers down her spine. Panic surged, pushing against her chest like a tidal wave. "Help us!" The whispers echoed again, a haunting melody of desperation. Heart racing, she scrambled backwards, but her foot caught on something unseen. She tumbled down, hitting the floor with a thud. Pain shot through her shoulder, but the cries pulled her back up, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Help us!" It grew louder, more insistent, thrumming against her skull. She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting the urge to succumb to fear. Something sinister lurked just beyond her sight. "Open the trunk." A voice cried, sharp as a knife. "You must." Sarah's chest constricted. The trunk, the very thing that had drawn her in. She staggered to her feet, the echoes of sobs piercing the thick air. As she steadied herself, the cold tendrils of shadow began to swirl closer. Each breath hurt, laced with decay, filling her with the smell of stale sorrow, but the murmurs clawed at her mind, and against all reason, her legs moved. She didn't want to. She was urged on by something she couldn't quite comprehend. Fear and duty mingled as she approached the trunk, heart pounding. It stood there, aged and defiant, with a chant pulsing through her veins. Instinctively, she reached for the latch, hands shaking at the metal. It felt impossibly cold, biting into her skin with a grip that left her breathless. The moment she clicked it open, the world seemed to shift. A gust of wind screeched through the attic, swirling like a storm. Dust and debris danced around her, and she stumbled back, half expecting something to explode from its confines. Inside lay forgotten remnants, tattered dolls, faded photographs, letters that spoke of longing. She reached a trembling hand into the trunk, brushing against a photograph of smiling children, eyes full of life. They smiled, but the shadows behind them loomed dark, hollow voids that swallowed their innocence. Sick terror clawed at her throat. Who were they? Where had they gone? Sarah. The urgency in the voices flared again, fear mixing with a pleading desperation. Help us. Don't let them take you. Heart racing, she recoiled. What do you want from me? She shouted, voice cracking, her desperation echoed in the suffocating space. Release us, they cried in unison, their chorus like a funeral dirge. You hold the key. What key? Her thoughts tangled in confusion. Reflexively, she looked down at the errant trinkets in the trunk. As her fingers grazed a rusted key, a heaviness filled the air, mounting like an avalanche ready to crush her. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the depths of the shadows. It was a silhouette, shifting and flickering, a grotesque distortion of a child. Fear crashed over her like freezing water. No! She screamed, desperately backing away, her pulse hammering in her ears. The whispers morphed into screeches, a cacophony erupting that drowned her sense of reality. She felt the sorrow, the regret, pulling her down into the depths of their torment, caught in their eternal limbo. Don't let them keep you. With a surge of will, Sarah lunged back toward the trunk, the key clutched tight in her hand. She had to understand. She had to try before it was too late. As she turned, shadows lunged, grasping at her limbs, clawing to pull her into their depths. She was on the edge of obliteration, the pull of despair agonizing. But in that moment of turmoil, could she unlock the truth hidden inside the attic? Or would she become lost among the cursed whispers, just like the children? Would her choice save them, or seal her own doom? Breath quickening, Sarah pressed the key close. She was running out of time and the darkness had teeth. With trembling hands, Sarah gripped the key tighter, its metal cool and heavy against her palm. The shadows surged forward, a hungry wave. She could feel their breath, cold, rancid, laced with anguish. No! She yelled again, inching closer to the trunk, drawn by an invisible force. The ghostly figure danced closer, its features becoming more defined. Hollow eye sockets stared back at her, a mouth stretched into a haunting grin, twisting the fabric of her reality. Open it! The children cried, their voices a haunting mixture of desperation and fury. You have to help us. A surge of determination pushed her forward. She knelt by the trunk, heart pounding as the key hovered over the lock, barely inches above it. It felt almost alive, vibrating with a dreadful energy. But what lay beneath? With a sharp breath, she plunged the key into the lock, twisting it firmly. Clinks echoed ominously as she pushed the lid up, and the contents spilled out like the ghosts of the past, a whirlwind of memories locked away, now unleashed. The air thickened, swirling with memories that wrapped around her like a vice. Faces of children drifted through the mist, their laughter mingled with cries of despair, an orchestra of lost souls. They reached out with skeletal hands, fingers brushing hers as if to plead for freedom. Sarah recoiled as a tidal wave of cold enveloped her, drowning her in fear. "Get back! Stay back!" she yelled, but the shadows only closed in tighter, the whispers rising to a fever pitch. Suddenly, a small wooden box nestled at the bottom of the trunk caught her eye. Its surface was engraved with strange symbols, glimmering even in the oppressive dark. Gathering her courage, Sarah pulled it out, instinctively feeling the pull of its mystery. The air crackled around her as she turned the box over in her hands. "What are you?" she whispered, almost in reverence. The children surged around her, their wails echoing like a dark symphony. "Open it! Open it! Stop!" she shouted back, her voice breaking against the howling wind. "Tell me why." The shadows quivered, momentarily quieting. "A secret lies within," they chanted, as though a spell had been cast. "A way to set us free or to bind you forever." A muffled sound cut through their twisted chants, a voice strained and broken, curse trapped at a price. Sarah's breath hitched, fear pooling in her gut. What price? Her heart raced with dread, pounding in her ears louder than the whispers. She was standing before a terrible choice: open the box and risk everything, or turn away and let the shadows claim her. With a gasp of resolve, she decided. Fingers trembling, she took a deep breath and slid open the lid. A rush of wind whipped past her, a gust so strong it knocked her backward. The attic transformed, warping as light poured from the box, illuminating the shadows that clung to the corners like nightmarish beasts. Gasping, Sarah shielded her eyes. In the blinding light, she caught a glimpse of the children, their hollow eyes now filled with desperate hope. "Help us!" they cried once more, but before she could respond, the shadows struck, tendrils wrapping around her legs, anchoring her in place. She screamed, the sound swallowed in the violent chaos surrounding her. Would she become their savior or their next victim? Time was slipping away, the storm of voices rising to a fever pitch. "You hold our fate. Open it." But the light was fading. She had to act. Could she withstand the truth waiting within that small box? What darkness lay there, threatening to consume her soul? The answer was just within reach, or was it already too late? The moment the lid creaked open, chaos erupted. The air crackled with energy as shadows writhed and stretched, reaching for Sarah with gnarled fingers. She tore her gaze from the box, now glowing with an unnatural light, and felt the shadows engulf her, cold and suffocating. They clawed at her ankles, biting deeper, whispering secrets filled with sinister dread. What do you want?" Sarah gasped, desperation lacing her voice. The children's cries echoed, a haunting discord intertwined with the shadows calling for her attention. "Is it the box? Is that what you want? Help us!" they cried, their voices morphing into a cacophony of anguish. "You must know the truth." The radiant light from the box began to swirl, revealing flash images of the children, faded whispers of laughter that turned into cries of despair. She saw them trapped, their faces twisted in terror, confined within shadows as dark as a moonless night. Panic sank deeper into her gut. Faces she didn't recognize, children she had never known, now bound to her in this horrifying reality. They pointed towards the box, their eyes screamed for her to look closer. Against her better judgment, her trembling hands reached into the light as if being drawn by an unseen force. The glow pulsed gently under her touch, a heartbeat waiting to be unleashed. But the moment she got a firm grip on the box's edges, the night screamed back, cold fingers of shadow tightening around her wrists, dragging her down. "No!" Sarah fought back, heart racing, adrenaline pumping through her veins. She yanked the box with all her strength. The light arced violently, forcing the shadows to momentarily loosen their grip. She staggered back, clutching the box against her chest. The symbols on its surface glowed brighter, illuminating the faces of the children, pale and desperate, some weeping, some angry. Time hung heavy, and dread filled the air. What's inside? She rasped, barely able to hold on. What is the truth? In a moment of stillness, one child stepped forward, eyes wide with urgency. You will see, but only if you dare, he whispered, the coldness of his breath chilling her to the bone. If you continue, the darkness will claim you too. Sarah gulped, the weight of her decision heavier than ever. The air vibrated with energy, crackling like a storm. She was teetering on the edge of a decision that could change everything. With a swift determination, Sarah exhaled sharply. I have to know. The children's eyes widened, the shadows around her pulsed and hissed like serpents. She wrenched open the box completely, bracing for whatever horror awaited her inside. A blinding light burst forth, filling the attic. It poured through the windows, flickering violently with electricity, illuminating the darkness. The shadows shrieked, retreating. She gasped in disbelief. Inside the box lay a mirror, a cracked, tarnished surface reflecting not just her terrified face but something dark lurking behind her. With every breath, she felt a spirit rising from within the box, an echo of the lost children swirling like fog, excited and furious. What's happening? She stammered, fear crystallizing in her chest. The room trembled, shaking under the weight of the revelations to come. Shadows danced menacingly as the children's faces twisted into smiles that sent shivers down her spine. The echoing whispers swelled again. You have unleashed the truth. Make your choice: join us or become one with the shadows. The words hung heavily in the air, a choice layered with fear. Sarah's heart raced as the shadows pulsed around her, forming a vortex that threatened to pull her into the unknown. The box glowed more fiercely, and within moments, she felt the weight of a dark decision resting squarely on her shoulders. Could she bear it? What lay ahead? As the vortex spiraled faster, she realized one thing was certain: she would never be the same again. What came next was only beginning. The mirror's surface rippled, the reflections of her surroundings warping like a dream pulled into a nightmare. A low hum filled the attic, vibrating through her bones as the faces of the children warped and twisted, each disturbing smile growing wider, more menacing. What do you want from me? Sarah shouted against the rush of energy, her voice lost in the swell of whispers. Join us, the children pleaded, their cries blending into a unified chant. Help us. Help us find peace. The shadows flickered, drawing closer, swirling like a storm. They began to tug at her, icy tendrils weaving through her clothes, promising release from fear, urging her to let go of her resistance. She felt the pull deep in her core, the dark promise of discovery. But something deeper sat heavy in her gut, a gnawing fear that this truth would shatter her very soul. Memories rushed through her mind, visions of her own childhood, laughter under the sun, the warmth of belonging. These children had none of that. All that remained were echoes of smiles that once were, haunting reminders of lives left unlived. Stop! She cried, her hands griping the edges of the mirror as though it might anchor her against the tide of shadow. She wanted to close it, to shut the dark away, but the sobs of the children echoed in her mind, relentless, culpable. Sarah, see what you've done. The voice sliced through the chaos like a knife. It was not the children's, it was deeper, darker, a sound that made the hair on her neck stand up. She turned, her heart pounding as she searched the dark corners, every shadow now appearing alive and soulless. Who are you? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. An observer, came the reply, a rippling laughter pooling around her, swirling through the air like smoke. You opened the door, child. Now you must face the consequence. The children screamed, the sound growing abruptly agonized. Their faces morphed into helpless masks of grief and rage. The room echoed with their torment, drowning her. Silence had been an illusion, the real battle was here, swirling in her very being. She tried to step back, stumbled, and felt the ground unsteady beneath her feet, shadows threatening to swallow her whole. No. I can't. Then you're one of us. The laughter grew louder, hysterical, slashing through her resolve. Tendrils of shadow wrapped around her wrists now, tightening like a vice. She felt her breath quicken, each panicked gasp stinging her lungs, filling her with desperation. "Release them!" she screamed into the void. "I want to save you." Yet the shadows only twisted tighter. From deep within the mirror, she saw it a glimmer of hope hidden behind swirling despair. If she could reach it, if she dared to confront the truth, maybe she could set the children free. "What is the sacrifice?" she whispered, terrified of the answer. Silence. The laughter faded, and the shadows slackened, now only watching, waiting. The children remained terrified, their faces pleading as they strained to reclaim their lost childhoods, each one trapped in the void created by choices made long ago. "Choose wisely," the darkness hissed. "Help them, and you may lose yourself, or turn away and lose them forever." Heart racing, mouth dry, Sarah took a deep breath. Her mind whirled while she weighed the lives in the balance. Was she willing to plunge into the heart of darkness, risking everything for the glimmer of hope? The shadows pressed in closer, the flickering light of the box illuminating her frantic gaze in stark contrast. Time felt suspended, every second stretching into eternity. "Will you join them?" came the haunting whisper. Unseen eyes bore down upon her, waiting for a decision that could seal her fate. The vortex spun, and in its depths, she saw the children's faces shift from terror to something else: anticipation, hope, desperation. The choice loomed large in the pitch-dark space, and Sarah knew it was now or never. Would she turn her back on the shadows threatening to consume her, catching a glimpse of light, or succumb to the abyss, powerless against the voices that called her name? The silence singed. And just as her heart prepared to leap into the unknown, the mirror shattered what awaited her on the other side. Shards of glass exploded outward, each piece catching a glimmer of light before falling to the floor like raindrops from a storm. Sarah stumbled back, her heart racing as she grasped the remnants of the mirror that had held her captive. The attic swirled around her, the whispers fading yet lingering in the corners of her mind. She pulled her hands away, trembling as the echoes of the children's cries haunted her ears. Where the mirror had stood, a cloud of darkness swirled, oozing a thick, oily fog that snaked toward her, seeking her presence. Sarah felt her body harden, as though the shadows were trying to entrap her again, but determination surged through her veins. "Not this time," she muttered, pushing against the weight of fear that flooded the space. She grasped the old wooden doorframe and took a step forward, the floor beneath her creaking ominously, warning her of potential doom. Then, something caught her eye. At the far end of the attic, a flickering glow seeped through the boards of the floor. Beneath her feet, a faint brightness pulsed like a heartbeat, almost inviting her to investigate. The irony didn't escape her, light in a place of darkness. As she approached, the floorboards felt warm, a stark contrast to the chill that clung to her skin. She knelt, brushing her fingers over the rough wood, barely able to contain her shivers at the rush of memories that flooded her mind. The glow brightened, flickering with life, calling to her with soft, whispering words. "Sarah, help us!" Her heart sank. They were back. The children's voices intertwined with the pulsing light, wrapping around her like ribbons, clinging, pleading. She pressed her palms flat against the wood, and beneath her fingertips, a vision formed, a scene from another time. A room filled with laughter and warmth. Kids playing, singing, but shadows loomed behind them. Dark figures weaved through the laughter, corrupting innocence. Her breath hitched. They were trapped in that memory, suffocated by a darkness they could not fight. "Help us find peace," the voices implored again. In that moment, she felt their despair wrap around her heart, squeezing tight. But how? How could she ever escape this cycle? Her mind raced, recalling the fabric of her childhood, the memories she once cherished, her own laughter being shadowed by doubt. "What do you mean?" she gasped, voice trembling as she leaned closer to the light. "They need to break the chains," came the whisper, a chorus of longing. "We need to show them the truth." Sarah fought against the urge to flee. She understood now that she had a choice. She could ignore their plea and live in ignorance, or delve deeper, risking everything to set them free. "Fine!" she shouted, her voice echoing off the attic walls. "I will help you. But you have to show me how." The warm glow intensified, each pulse matching the beat of her heart. Suddenly, the walls shook as if responding to the urgency in her voice. The shadows around her recoiled, retreating momentarily as if drawn away by a force greater than fear. Then, in a cacophony of light and shadow, a doorway appeared, splintering open where the floor had once been solid. A dark abyss yawned below, shimmering with possibilities both terrible and wondrous. "Will you step into the darkness to find the light?" came the voice again, the air heavy with anticipation. Every instinct screamed at Sarah to run. Yet, she found herself standing at the edge of the void, the children's faces swimming before her eyes. "Will you join them?" the shadows whispered seductively. With a shuddering breath, Sarah took a step forward, teetering on the brink of an abyss filled with unknowns, the price of freedom still dangling in the air, heavy and thick. "Don't look back," the voice urged, but just before she could leap into the depths, the ground beneath her cracked, splitting apart, sending her tumbling into darkness. What would she find below? Would it be salvation or deeper despair? She fell. The darkness wrapped around her like a shroud, pulling her down into the depths beneath the floorboards. Panic surged through her, and as she spiraled through the abyss, the echoes of children's laughter turned into terrified wails. The familiar warmth of the light faded and she was swallowed by an inky void, her senses straining against the oppressive silence. Suddenly, her descent halted. Sarah hit the ground hard, gasping as air rushed back into her lungs. The blackness around her began to lift, revealing ghostly figures standing in a circular formation. She scrambled to her feet, heart racing, mind racing faster. They were the children. Their translucent forms trembled in the dim light, faces contorted in anguish. "You came." One whispered, the voice barely a murmur, yet filled with desperate hope. I am here," she stammered, caught off guard by the realization that she was not dreaming. This was not some fantasy, their despair felt real, thick in the air. "Help us," another child cried, tears spilling down their ghostly cheeks. "The darkness binds us. Break the bond." Sarah felt a shiver crawl down her spine. The air hummed with tension, and she realized she was in a space devoid of age, time twisted in on itself, lost in the black void. A chill clung to her skin like a warning, something terrible lurking just beyond her vision. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling as dread clawed at her throat. "How can I help you?" The children stepped closer, forming an intimate circle around her. Their eyes shone with an ethereal light, but that light flickered with darkness. "In the attic," they urged. "The truth is buried there. You must find it." Images surged behind her eyelids, memories of laughter mingled with grief, then shadows sweeping across crumbling walls, hiding secrets older than time. "But how?" she pleaded, fear radiating from her as she could feel the shadows lingering, waiting. "What do I need to do?" "Face the darkness." They whispered in unison, their voices rising like a storm. "You must confront the monster that keeps us chained." With each word, the ground beneath her feet vibrated, and fog curled around her ankles. A pinprick of fear became a yowl that reverberated in her chest. "What monster?" "I can't fight, I'm not brave enough." "Find the mirror," echoed a soft voice, far clearer than the rest. A child with large, sorrowful eyes took a step forward. "The mirror is the key. It holds the truth." Before she could ask more, the floor heaved violently, the world tilting at a sharp angle. The children vanished, leaving her clutching empty air, heart pounding. Sarah blinked, suddenly standing back in the attic, but not the same attic she once inhabited. The walls were spiraled with dark shadows, pulsing like a living entity. In the center of the room, remnants of the mirror lay scattered, their surfaces still glimmering in the eerie light, but it was not the mirror that caught her eye. It was a shadow moving within the darkness, coiling and twisting, more sinister than before. It was alive. It was waiting. There will be no peace. The darkness hissed, a chill slicing through the air. Taking a trembling step back, Sarah knew she had no choice. The truth beckoned, and the echoes of the children resonated in her mind, urging her forward. Time to confront what lies within, she whispered to herself, swallowing her fear. With a deep breath, she stepped closer to the shards of glass, feeling the air thrum with energy. The truth was near. But as she reached for the pieces, a shadow lunged forward, teeth glistening like knives. Not yet. It growled, and darkness surged, swallowing her thoughts. What would Sarah discover next? Would the truth set her free, or was it a trap to bind her forever? The jagged shard of glass glinted ominously as Sarah lurched back, heart pounding violently against her ribcage. The shadow didn't retreat, it swarmed closer, its icy breath tickling her neck. Panic clawed at her throat. "What do you want from me?" she gasped, trying to maintain some semblance of control. "Your soul," it rasped, a malevolent grin stretching its dark form. As it spoke, the room warped, shadows seeping into every corner until only the shadows remained tangible. The faint outline of the children flickered, their faces blurred in terror. "Sarah," a voice floated to her, soft yet full of grave warning. The child with sorrowful eyes emerged, trembling. "You must act quickly." The mirror. Dread twisted in her gut like a knife. "What happens if I don't?" she managed, breath hitching as the shadow shifted, now coiling like smoke around her legs. "Help us escape or we are all lost forever." It was a desperate plea, and she felt the weight of every child's anguish pressing on her. The atmosphere thickened, making it hard to breathe. "No more time." The shadow roared, lunging toward her. The air crackled with violent energy, and Sarah's instinct kicked in. She dove for the scattered shards of the mirror, disregarding her fear. Truth lay in those fragments. Her fingers skimmed over the cold glass, her nails catching jagged edges. Pain shot through her hand, but she welcomed it, focusing on the sharp breath of reality amid terror. Memories flared like wildfire. She saw flashes of the children's laughter, moments of joy before the darkness closed in. "Sarah." The child's voice echoed again, tangible and filled with an urgency she couldn't ignore. The shadow surged, baring its teeth. With a surge of defiance, she grasped a larger piece of the mirror. "Show me," she yelled, holding the shard aloft like a weapon. The glass vibrated, and suddenly, images flooded her mind. The attic around her distorted, revealing scenes from the past, children trapped, despair radiating off the walls, whispers of their forgotten dreams layered in dust. "Break the mirror. The bond must be severed." They chanted, their voices intertwining into a haunting melody. Clenching her teeth, Sarah focused on the shard. It cooled to the touch, pulsing with the heartbeat of surrender. The shadow slithered closer, its hungry breath chilling her skin. "Stop!" it screeched, lunging again. Time slowed. With a primal scream, Sarah slammed the shard against the floor. The sound rang out like a gunshot, reverberating against the walls. The floor shuddered, echoes ricocheting as if the house itself cried out in pain. Light exploded from the point of contact, bathing the room in white fury. The shadow recoiled, howling in rage, but it was too late. The mirror fragmented, sending shards skittering across the ground, each one catching the flicker of newly brightening energy. "Run!" the child shouted. Sarah didn't need telling twice. She tore toward the doorway, the light now pulsing from the shattered remains. Behind her, the shadow screeched, its form wavering in the brilliance, struggling against the swell of purifying light, but as she crossed the threshold, a dark tendril lashed out, wrapping tightly around her ankle, pulling her back into the encroaching gloom. "You can't escape." Struggling, Sarah refused to give in. The children's faces swam in her vision, a haunting chorus of fear and hope. "I will save you," she screamed, channeling her fear into a steady resolve. Suddenly, with one final, desperate pull, she freed herself, stumbling into the light. The house shook violently, the echoes merging into a cacophony of laughter and cries, muddling her senses. And then, silence, dazed, she found herself back in the attic. Everything seemed normal again, but a lingering chill brushed her spine. The mirror remained broken, yet she was not alone. A shadow flickered in the corner of her eye. "Is it over?" she whispered, dread heavy in her chest, but the answer came in a soft, sinister laugh echoing from the depths of the darkness. "Oh, we aren't finished yet." Her breath caught. What had she unleashed? The truth was just beginning to unravel, and the darkness still had secrets to unveil. What lay beneath that silence? The attic was eerily quiet, but Sarah could feel the pulse of something waiting. She stood shaking, trying to catch her breath, the air still electric. The shadows curled around the room, dark fingers creeping toward her, barely visible, but undeniably there. Her heart hammered against her chest, and the remnants of that sinister laughter echoed in her ears, a warning, a threat. "What do you want?" she whispered, stepping cautiously backward. "The truth, dear Sarah," a voice replied, smooth and somehow both comforting and terrifying at once. It wasn't the shadow. It was one of the children, the one with those large, sorrowful eyes. "You've opened a door that should have remained closed. The truth is never easy." "What truth? What did I reveal?" she demanded, determination mingling with palpable fear. The attic felt too small, as the shadows seemed to bend and expand, creating their own grotesque reality. "You have seen the fragments of our past," the child's voice remained steady, despite the turmoil swirling around, "but you haven't seen our future. There's a chance, a phenomenal chance to save us all." Sarah held her breath, considering the child's words. "Save you from what?" "From the darkness that has consumed this house. From the bond that links our souls to it." The air crackled with anguish, crackling like lightning in a storm. She could almost feel the pulse of those trapped children wrapping around her heart. "In order to free us, you must confront the monster that lurks there." The child pointed toward the shadowy corner where the darkness writhed. "You must show it light." A sense of duty seized her. Memories of laughter and playgrounds filled with warmth surged in her mind. "Show me how," Sarah said, realizing there was more at stake than just her fear. "Find the source," the child's voice urged, urging her to move, to spark action. "But be careful. The monster will try to take you down its dark path again." Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped toward the shadows. The atmosphere thickened, and the air turned heavy with despair. The figures of the lost children watched in anticipation, their eyes wide, capturing every ounce of her bravery. With housing trepidation, she grasped a shard from the broken mirror. Its edges were jagged and sharp, a tangible representation of her resolve. As she moved closer, light began to rise from her heart, an ethereal glow that pushed back against the dark. "Stay strong," the children whispered, the chorus of hope amplifying her courage. She could feel their desperate wish for salvation thrumming in her veins. Plunging into the shadows, she confronted the swirling abyss. "You may fear me," she announced, voice steady and fierce, "but I will not allow you to take any more lives." The darkness recoiled, its presence quaking. "You know not what you unleash," it hissed back, a foul wind whipping through the attic. "You cannot defeat me. I feed on despair. Then I will show you what hope looks like." Sarah shouted defiantly. She held the shard aloft, letting the light flow from within her, channeling the laughter and love she held deep in her heart, the memories of every lost joy, every cherished moment. The shard shimmered in response, illuminating the shadows, forcing them to waver. "No! No!" The shadows writhed and screamed, desperate to escape the burning light. Dark tendrils slipped out of reach, burnt by the warmth of her resolve. Sarah continued forward. "You think you can bind me? You think you can take control? I will not let you." With a determined thrust, she plunged the shard deep into the center of the swirling darkness. An explosion of light erupted, illuminating every corner of the attic, revealing its true form. Whispers surged into song, and the barrier of despair shattered, echoing with freedom. "Help us! Free us! The children's voices rang out, united in their cries. They swirled around her, filling the room with a warmth that swept through her like a breath of fresh air. As she pulled the shard from the remnants of shadow and despair, a vortex of energy spiraled around her, swirling the lost souls before her eyes. One by one, the silhouettes began to fade, their faces transforming from anguish to relief. "You've done it," said the child with the sorrowful eyes, a soft grin forming. "You've released us." The shadows recoiled in defeat, melting away as the joyful atmosphere infused the attic, filling it with life again. The whispers of laughter echoed around her, echoing like a beautiful melody, triumph over tragedy. A brilliant light enveloped her. Sarah felt herself being lifted, floating, as the warmth washed over her and through her, a victory she had never imagined possible. When it faded, she stood alone in the attic, empty, yet vibrantly alive. Tears streamed down her face as she beheld the remnants of the children's laughter nestled deep in her heart. They were free, their voices a part of her now, and behind them echoed the unity and love she had bathed them in. "Thank you," she whispered into the now quiet space, a farewell laced with hope and promise. Then, as if a heavy veil had lifted, the attic felt bright and clear. Shadows no longer threatened. The house breathed the sigh of relief that had been held for far too long. Taking a step toward the door, Sarah felt peace wash over her, a reminder that in the face of despair, love and courage could always light the way. She turned one last time, heart full, knowing the story didn't end here. As she stepped through the doorway and into the light, Sarah smiled. She had fought for their future, and in turn, discovered her own. Now, this is your chance to make a difference. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will ignite your imagination and take you on more heart-racing adventures. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us bring these tales to more people who crave excitement. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this unexpected conclusion. We want to hear from you, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Spread the word, because only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.